If you grew up watching Hollywood movies, you know exactly how a pirate attack is supposed to go. A plucky crew of outlaws pulls their sleek little ship alongside a massive Spanish galleon. They swing across on ropes, clash swords on the top deck, grab the gold, and sail away into the sunset. The reality of 16th and 17th century naval warfare was violently different. Attacking a galleon wasn't a swashbuckling adventure. It was a mathematical impossibility. It was a maritime death wish. You see, the Spanish galleon wasn't just a cargo ship carrying silver. It was the 16th century's equivalent of a nuclear deterrent. A floating fortress of oak and iron, custom-built to deliver a level of destruction that no pirate and very few rival navies could survive. Today, we are stepping off the top deck and descending into the dark, suffocating, and lethal world of the galleon's gun deck. We're going to break down the weapons, the terrifying physics of cannon fire, and the ruthless tactical doctrine that made this ship the undisputed king of the oceans. To understand the sheer kinetic power of a galleon, you have to understand the canvas it was built on. By the late 1500s, Spain was extracting billions of pesos worth of silver from the Americas. This wealth was the engine of the global economy, and Spain needed a way to protect it across 4,000 miles of hostile open ocean. The answer was a ship carved from the dense, slow-growing oak of northern Spain. This wasn't a sleek racing yacht. A standard galleon displaced 500 tons. Its keel, the spine of the ship, was formed from massive pieces of timber scarfed together so tightly they functioned as a single, unbreakable bone. Over this skeleton, shipwrights layered thick oak planking, sealed tight with tar and oakum. The result was a hull capable of deflecting light artillery fire like modern Kevlar. But its defensive armor was nothing compared to its offensive capability. The true horror of the galleon lay beneath the main deck, arranged in rows, waiting in the dark. Welcome to the gun deck. A large Spanish galleon carried up to 60 or 70 guns, distributed across 3 decks. But these weren't generic cannons, they were masterpieces of 16th century metallurgy. The heaviest pieces, the culverins and demi-culverins, were positioned on the lowest deck right near the waterline. This kept the ship's center of gravity low and stable. Each bronze culverin was cast in a single pour. Molten metal flowed into a sand mold around a clay core. Once cooled, the bore was reamed to precise dimensions. The result was a weapon weighing between 2,000 and 4,000 pounds. These monsters fired a 12-pound solid iron ball. Now, 12 pounds might not sound like much in the modern era of high-explosive missiles, but you have to understand the physics of what this weapon did. A Spanish culverin could hurl that 12-pound sphere of iron a distance of 500 yards with deadly accuracy. At that range, the iron ball carried so much kinetic energy that it didn't just punch a neat hole in an enemy ship. Which brings us to the most terrifying reality of naval warfare in the age of sail. In pirate movies, cannons explode in massive balls of fire. In reality, naval artillery of this era fired solid, non-explosive kinetic projectiles. When that 12-pound iron ball struck the side of an enemy vessel, it was the wood of the targeted ship itself that became the primary weapon. Upon impact, the oak planking of the enemy hull would violently shatter. The kinetic energy transformed the ship's own walls into a localized hurricane of wooden shrapnel. This was known as the Splinter Storm. Thousands of jagged shards of oak, some the size of a man's arm, were driven through the enclosed space of the enemy's gun deck at impact velocity. These splinters would decapitate, amputate, and completely disembowel a rival crew in a fraction of a second. The solid iron ball might kill 2 or 3 men in its direct path. The Splinter Storm could wipe out 20. A struck gun deck instantly became an abattoir. It was a claustrophobic slaughterhouse filled with choking black smoke, the screams of the wounded, and decks slick with blood. Because the weapons were so heavy and the environment so dangerous, reloading was the ultimate constraint. A well-drilled Spanish gun crew of the 16th century required a grueling 2 to 3 minutes to reload a heavy gun. In a close-quarters engagement, the ship was constantly moving. You only had a tiny window where your guns were perfectly aligned with the enemy. The English Navy preferred a system of continuous fire, guns firing independently to maintain a steady rain of shot. But the Spanish developed a far more brutal tactical doctrine. The Spanish relied on the synchronized broadside. They didn't want to chip away at an enemy. They wanted to annihilate them in a single devastating heartbeat. The doctrine assumed that one perfectly timed concentrated salvo of 30 heavy guns firing simultaneously would completely cripple an opponent before they could even respond. And if the enemy ship somehow survived the broadside and managed to close the distance, they were met by professional Spanish infantry, soldiers trained in pike and musket warfare, lining the upper decks, ready to repel boarders with merciless efficiency. The pirates who looked through their spyglasses and dreamed of capturing a Spanish galleon were looking at a fortune in silver, but they were also looking at a fortress of oak, armed with the most devastating artillery of the age, crewed by men executing a ruthless military doctrine. It was the ultimate weapon of its time, a machine built to concentrate and project power, and for the few who dared to test its guns, they rarely lived long enough to regret it. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this breakdown of historical warfare, hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments which historical weapon or battle tactic we should analyze next. Until next time.